Hey everyone, I hope you're doing well and staying happy and healthy. Today, Morgan and I are going to be talking about educational assessments, more specifically assessments used within a classroom to measure a student's progress. And at the end, we will be quickly touching base on rubrics. Assessments are used in a variety of different ways throughout the whole educational field, from worldwide rankings to state rankings to county rankings to how a teacher's doing, but we're going to be just specifically talking about how a teacher uses assessments within their classroom.
Assessments are frequently put into question as there are many pros and cons that come with assessing students. Some of the cons of assessments include limited student feedback, only surface learning may occur, test-taking abilities may overcome content knowledge and understanding, questions can be misinterpreted, and the reliability of tests are often unknown. On the other hand, there are many pros of assessments, including districts are familiar with prescribing them, they're often cost-effective and time-efficient, they offer rapid feedback to the teacher, they can cover a broad range of topics, and various forms of assessments exist.
So the types of assessments that we're going to be talking about today are formative learning assessments, formative diagnostic assessments, benchmark interim assessments, and summative assessments.
The first assessment we'll be covering is the formative diagnostic assessment. This comes before the formative learning assessment that we'll cover momentarily. This one is used to analyze what students have learned in the past, most of the time from different teachers or classes. Advantages of this assessment include allowing a teacher to gain valuable information about where their students' baseline level of knowledge is about a subject. It also benefits students from gaining familiarity with questions. This type of assessment is used periodically before starting a new unit or subject.
Mr. Smith just met his new first graders. Next week, he will be starting a new unit in mathematics. He wants to determine where each student's baseline of knowledge is. He gives each student an informal quiz and gives them 15 minutes to fill it out and submit. Mr. Smith then gathers the quizzes and grades them unofficially. Later on, he uses the quizzes to organize the students into math groups based on their results. Formative learning assessments discover what students know while they're still in the process of learning it. The benefits to formative assessments allow teachers to identify problems within a subject area, adjust lesson plan approaches, reteach troublesome material, help identify student learning differences, and reduce student stress. Formative learning assessments are used frequently. They can be tied into nearly everyday lesson plans on a weekly basis, bi-weekly basis, or scattered throughout the entire unit.
Mrs. Holt has been doing a unit on sight words. As she reads books during circle and throughout the day, she calls on students to identify sight words. When students identify the sight words throughout the day, they receive a tally on their desk. At the end of the day, Mrs. Holt documents the results and adjusts her lesson plans to meet the needs of each student. This is one of the many ways teachers can use formative learning assessments within their classroom on a regular basis.
Another type of assessment is the benchmark assessment. This is seen between the formative and summative assessments. It holds lots of key benefits, some which include being able to evaluate your students and where they are in their learning progress, and also to determine whether or not they're on track to doing well on future assessments and also academically. This type of assessment is used periodically, often seen at the end of a quarter or at least once a month. Mr. Finn pulls each student aside and has them read a passage aloud. As the student reads aloud, the teacher marks the words they get wrong. As the school year goes on, Mr. Finn continuously has the students read the passage aloud to ensure progress is occurring. This is one example of how a teacher can use benchmark assessments within their classroom.
Summative assessments are used to reflect the student's learning outcome. The key benefits of this are teachers are able to improve their instruction as needed, they're able to evaluate what students understood, and measure student achievement. These types of assessments are used periodically, often at the end of a unit or a year.
Mrs. Sims is a teacher in Monroe County. At her school, they are required to prescribe standardized tests and submit the scores to the state of New York. These tests are given at the end of each school year. This is one example of how summative tests are used within the classroom. Formative assessments can be seen more in class discussions, clicker questions, low-stakes group work, or weekly quizzes, while summative assessments are more to be seen in instructor-created exams, standardized tests, final projects, or final essays.
In most cases, summative assessments are much less frequent than formative assessments for a variety of reasons. By giving assessments at the end of a unit, semester, and/or school year, it grants the students the ability to build up the knowledge they need to succeed. Formative assessments, on the other hand, can be integrated into teaching throughout the day, whether it be a ticket out the door, a quiz, or verbal questions and answers. When used correctly, formative assessments offer a wealth of information on a day-to-day basis. As a teacher, how would you tie formative assessments into your teaching?
Most teachers follow a cycle like so when it comes to assessing their students.
Since we have switched to an online learning environment, we are asking you guys to please respond to all of our discussion questions in the comments below. We can use this Blackboard format to kind of comment back and forth to one another and also discuss this on Thursday when we meet on Zoom. As a teacher, how would you tie formative and summative assessments into your teaching? What types of assessments do you see being used in your placement? What types of assessments do you think you will incorporate in your future classrooms? And have you heard of any other forms of assessments? If so, what types and how have you seen them being used? To conclude, listen to the following scenarios. Write down what types of assessments you think are being described. We will discuss them on Thursday. Also, stay tuned for some bloopers. We figured our embarrassment was worth some laughs, especially during these hard times. We hope that you are all staying happy and healthy, and we can't wait to see you on Thursday. Miss Clementine is teaching a unit on weather. Throughout her lesson plans, she prompts the students to answer open-ended questions. After each lesson plan, she does a ticket out the door. What type of assessment would you say she is using? Mr. Oak is teaching a unit on multiplication. The class has been given mini multiplication quizzes each day. At the end of the unit, Mr. Oak will be giving out a unit exam. What two types of assessments did Mr. Oak use?
In addition to assessments, here's a quick overview of rubrics. Two main types of rubrics include holistic and analytical. Holistic rubrics are used to assess students' overall achievement on an activity based on predefined achievement levels. The performance descriptions on holistic rubrics are written in paragraphs and usually in full sentences. Here you can see an example of a holistic rubric. It just scores as a 4, 3, 2, or 1 with the percentages next to it and the criteria following them. Analytical rubrics are two-dimensional rubrics with levels of achievement as columns and assessment criteria as rows. This allows you to assess students' achievements based on multiple criteria using a single rubric. You can assign different value to different criteria and include an overall achievement by totaling the criteria. These type of rubrics are written in a table form. Here we have an example of an analytical rubric. As you can see, we have our columns and rows broken up into different criteria and achievements. When comparing these two types of rubrics, they both have advantages and disadvantages. Using analytical rubrics allows you to evaluate each criteria separately. Advantages include diagnostic information, gives formative feedback, links instruction, it's adaptable, and it also allows the ability to combine scores. The disadvantages of this type of rubric is that it takes more time to evaluate when scoring multiple items. What we're going to be talking about is formative diagnosis.
Why can't I talk? Like, I literally don't understand.
This usually comes before. This does come before.
Wait, are you... Do I know how to talk? Like, do I know how to talk?
This...